For 22 months, the mantra has been as predictable and consistent as anything else in Donald Trump's presidency. No collusion, no obstruction. And it's a finding essentially echoed by the Office of Special Counsel Robert Mueller in his final report. Now, according to this very letter from the U.S. Attorney General to Congress, after 19 lawyers backed by 40 FBI agents issued 2,800 subpoenas, executed nearly 500 search warrants, and interviewed about 500 witnesses, Mueller did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its scheme to get Trump elected. On obstruction of justice, though, the score is murkier. Mueller himself weighed the evidence without drawing conclusions. In Mueller's words, his report does not conclude the president committed a crime. It also does not exonerate him. But as Paul Hunter tells us, you can guess how the U.S. president sums it all up.
For almost the whole time he's been in office, Donald Trump had waited for this. Today, stepping toward the cameras, no doubt relishing the moment to say, finally,
it was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration.
And while that's not entirely true, parts of it are. As Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who'd spent 22 months investigating Donald Trump while steering clear of cameras, today chose to go to church, then walk past the White House. He was doing so just as Attorney General Bill Barr was at the U.S. Justice Department putting the finishing touches on a summary of Mueller's findings. It's the summary released today that Trump was talking about on that tarmac. Key point, as Trump has said so often, no one in the Trump campaign was found to have colluded with Russia as Russia tried to influence the 2016 election. That's a huge win for Trump. But Mueller's findings on the other matter, on whether Trump obstructed justice trying to impede that investigation, the findings are ambivalent. It's not established that Trump committed any crime, says the summary, but Mueller's report does not exonerate him. And nowhere in Barr's summary does it say there is no evidence of any wrongdoing.
President Trump is wrong. This report does not amount to a so-called total exoneration.
Democrat Jerry Nadler, who would lead impeachment proceedings if it ever came to that, now says he wants the Attorney General to testify on Capitol Hill. Plus,
the entire unfiltered report, as well as the evidence underlying that report, must be made available to Congress and to the American people.
Still, back home in Washington tonight, Trump was in a pretty good mood.
I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth. The greatest place on earth. Thank you very much.
And for now, he left it at that. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Now, this is the White House right now. Trump inside after a weekend in Florida. As news of the arrival of Mueller's report roiled Washington, Trump was golfing. Now he'll be playing a very different game as the political implications sink in and as Congress pushes to get more information about Mueller's report. And the man who will be at the center of that fight, the same man in the news today, U.S. Attorney General William Barr, he decides how much more of Mueller's investigation is made public, but also where the investigation itself goes next. So let's bring in Keith Bogue in Washington. So Keith, explain that for us. The void left open by the fact that Mueller drew no conclusion on whether Trump obstructed justice.
I think, first of all, you have to remember how William Barr became the Attorney General. He became the Attorney General because of the vacancy created after the midterm elections last fall in November when Donald Trump fired Jeff Sessions. And he fired Jeff Sessions because he wanted an Attorney General who hadn't recused himself from the Russia investigation. He wanted an Attorney General who could get involved in it directly, and today we are seeing the fruits of that change in Attorney Generals. You have in William Barr somebody who gets a report from Robert Mueller saying, look, there's evidence to support that the president obstructed justice and there's evidence on the other side, I can't make a determination. Barr makes the determination himself and says, look, I've decided we're not going to prosecute on that there was no obstruction of justice. And that is exactly the kind of thing that Donald Trump had to have hoped he would get with an attorney general who could get himself involved in the investigation. But at the same time, it has created a sense of distrust, bad faith on the part of Democrats who believe that the fix was in, that William Barr had already prejudged the obstruction question months ago, in fact, in an essay he wrote before he even became the Attorney General. And so they're going to be facing off against each other. The Attorney General of the United States, appointed by Donald Trump, and the Democrats with their newfound power won in the election last November. And that's where the next friction point is going to be in all of this.
Right. And so, Keith, what are the kinds of questions that this letter issued by Barr that it doesn't answer on the Russia-Trump campaign relationship?
Well, I mean, for a start, the question that it answers is the big question about collusion, but it's maybe not even the most important question. It doesn't tell us, like, what's behind the fundamental facts that so many of the people in the Trump organization and the Trump campaign organization lied about the relationship with Russia. That includes the president, his son, his former national security advisor, his campaign manager, and others. Why did they lie about it? Typically, it's because they had something to hide. What was it that they had to hide? These are all questions about the Russia relationship with the Trump campaign that aren't answered simply by saying there was no collusion. And these are the questions that Democrats are going to want to hear from. And they may, in fact, be questions that Mueller has answered in his report, but we just don't know it yet from the letter that was released by the Attorney General today.
Keith Bogue in Washington, thanks very much.
Thank you.